es del Colo-Colo de Chile y manda 4 jugadores para reforzar el nuevo equipo. Y ese es el único momento, vamos, en mis 43 años, que no he visto no un sentimiento de hostilidad ni de rencilla, sino sorpresivo y realmente de profunda integración y agradecimiento. Esta relación entre Alianza y Colo-Colo se mantiene al punto que en las protestas estudiantiles de hace 3 o 4 años la barra del Colo-Colo salía a las calles a protestar y la barra de Alianza hizo un comunicado defendiendo las protestas. Y fue interesantísimo lo que pasó y lo que pasa entre esos dos equipos hasta ahora. Y creo que vale la pena pensarlo también como una coda como un dato de la conclusión de la investigación, ¿no?
So yes, thank you very much. So, yes, sport and music, and within sport, football in particular, can be other possible sites of encounter, no, to investigate, and maybe it also takes us beyond what in some ways seems a rather elite group of people when we talk about the writers like Cero Alegría and so forth. But that's really interesting, especially with football, because you often think of football championing nationalism, don't you? And so here's a moment of them coming together. Sí, muy interesante.
Another side of the camp. Oh, sorry.
Good.
That might be interesting is religious encounter.
Yes, and the church, yeah.
After all, with you might say the struggle inside of the Catholic Church to
Yeah.
define what Catholicism will mean in the 1960s and 1970s. There are all kinds of encounters there, and I do recall the case of the priest Volta in Chile, who was in Lima at the time of the coup, in the middle of one of these encounters, and comes back to Chile. There's a circulation and networking there that is not just about national hostility.
Yeah.
Una forma adicional sería también la parte cultural, pero la parte económica. Hay mucha inversión de Chile en Perú y no al otro lado. Entonces, esa es otra influencia que tiene en Perú, que no vemos en la parte cultural, pero en la parte económica es muy fuerte.
Sí, relaciones entre hombres de negocios y compañías, sí.
Muchísimo.
Sí. Y con una larga historia, no solo ahora.
Joanna, thank you very much for a great lecture. I'm a little, I'm more curious than anything else about the fact that you've chosen Gabriela Mistral, who is, among all Chilean intellectuals, one of the most transnational, Pan-American thinkers, and the apristas in exile, who are by definition also very transnational, trans-American. But I wonder if there are other intellectuals who are crossing the border in one or another direction, who are a little bit more ambiguous as to that relationship and are a little less willing to embrace each other, and perhaps there are gray zones there of conflict as well as areas of encounter.
Yes, definitely. And I mean, this is really kind of the tip of the iceberg in some ways. And I've chosen I've started off with certain kind of iconic figures on whom we have a great deal of material. But yes, I obviously want to go much beyond people like Gabriela Mistral and go beyond the Aprista exile community in Peru, and to look at other intellectuals too. And I guess, it'll happen through time as I spend, so this is a very new project, but as I spend more time on it. But yes, I'm aware of that these are certain key emblematic figures, and there are probably many more who are slightly more grey, like you say, more ambiguous.
To go more toward the official state-centered perspective for just a moment, I'm wondering if you're at all considering the extent to which indigenismos in the two countries have been constructed in very different ways. I mean, I think it's really important to point out that your book on the Mapuche in modern Chile, I think, is one of the first books that really systematically analyzes the existence of a long-term official form of indigenismo in Chile, in terms of, you know, the national government and the presidential policy being connected to specific elite Mapuche intellectuals, and that there is also a connection to socialism. And to the notion that somehow through socialism we need to bring in all the Americanos, right? And my understanding of Peruvian history is that that is really not an official indigenismo in Peru. So I'm wondering if you have an indigenismo like that in Chile, right? But you have in Peru an indigenismo that is maybe more bottom up in some ways, although obviously a lot of intellectuals are part of that. So how would that, do you think that can have an effect on the way in which you understand this notion of indigenous discourses or indigenista discourses and the exchange between the two societies?
Yes. Again, I have to kind of process what you were saying there and think about it some more. But I think you're right, it's important to take on board the very different contexts in which indigenismo is developed in both countries. Like you said, in Chile, it can sometimes seem far more top-down, particularly when you get to Allende's government, although that's also in dialogue with Mapuche organizations, isn't it?
Yes, and I'm sorry to jump back into this bit of a discussion. We've been having this for days. But, you know, the whole notion also of the fact that there are a lot of Mapuche members in the Communist Party in Chile. So these are the kinds of things that to me are fascinating about your project, which is how do we both compare but also contrast these different indigenismos, right?
And in Peru, it happens much earlier, doesn't it? But it's also, there seems to be, I don't know if this is too, there seems to be many more diverse strains of indigenismo in Peru as well, in the early 20th century, and where you read, you know, there is an official indigenismo, a state-sponsored indigenismo under Leguía, under Augusto Leguía, but there's also various very radical indigenismos, and you could, and to talk about indigenistas, you could take Luis Valcarcel, I'm not sure if I pronounced his surname there right correctly, or you could take José Carlos Mariátegui. They're very different forms, very different indigenista discourses, aren't they? So it does seem in Peru that there's a greater diversity of often conflicting indigenismos. So actually we need to talk about indigenismos, don't we, rather than indigenismo. It's not just one. But yes, I need to think about that more.
Yeah, about 30 years ago, I think it was, when I was in Chile, they had just started a program among the Mapuche for bilingual education and training teachers. I met a couple of teachers that were very excited about it. And then when I traveled to northeastern Peru, I found out that something similar was going on there with museums, etc. Not Quechua and not Mapuche. So I'm just wondering today, how has that evolved? I heard about some territorial conflicts between the Mapuche and the government, but this resurgency of culture, which I think is a fascinating thing to investigate. How is it progressing?
Okay, we were talking about this in your class, weren't we, Becky? I think, so there is a bilingual education program, an intercultural education program in Chile, a government-sponsored intercultural bilingual education program from, I think, 1996 officially, with a curricular reform under Frey. Most of the studies that I've read, and this isn't my particular period, no, but most of the studies that I've read tend to highlight the very limited nature of that bilingual education, and it's quite tokenistic. It's only in certain areas. It's not about educating Chileans about across Chile about the intercultural realities or the multicultural realities of Chile. You know, it's certain areas where there's a high proportion of Mapuche students. There also seems to be a sense, like I said, it's very tokenistic. Maybe you learn a few words in Mapudungun. But having said, at the same time, I think that the fact that there's legislation on it, that there's something on paper, that there's something in the policy, however limited that is in some ways, people can, groups, organizations, individuals can take advantage of that official willingness, if you like, and do some quite exciting things. So I don't have any specific examples to give off the top of my head, but my sense is, particularly with some of the students that are coming out of the Universidad Católica in Villarrica and the training program that they have there for Mapudungun, I think there are some really interesting initiatives. What I don't think is, I just don't feel like they come from the state. I think it depends on certain individuals and certain organizations taking the initiative. So I think there are some positive experiences, some really interesting projects. But I don't see that as something that's kind of spread across the board, and it seems to depend on certain people.
Let's thank you, Joanna, for a terrific talk.
Thank you very much.
Wish you the best luck on the project.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everybody.
This is great. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I took a lot. When I read it through.
I'm David Tudor, I'm the president of the United Students Association of Dane County this year, and I want to welcome you to this meeting. I think we're going to learn a lot tonight and have an enjoyable program. I want to thank the co-sponsors for this program, which would be the Madison Arquitao Sister City program and the Edgewood Global program, Global Studies program, and the Madison Rafa Sister City program, the Physicians for Social Responsibility, and we'll also hear tonight about Partners in Health. You'll hear much more learned information from Mark about that, but I just have to insert that Hilda and I, in our time in Kazakhstan during the last 15 years. About 15 years ago, we met a brilliant young medical graduate who got a grant to go study in Boston, and he came back trained in public health, and particularly in work with TB, the very highly resistant TB, and he's now working in Kazakhstan and other parts of the former Soviet Union with Partners in Health, helping to deal with TB. So we're very proud of the work that he is doing, and gratified by the support that Partners in Health provides. I want to we're going to pass around a sign-up sheet. So if you would sign up, and if you are not a member of the organization, if you could add an email address or a phone number or an address, we could get in touch with you. I think we should say thank you to Kathy Beckett and the Communications Committee. You have done a very great job in that, as we can see by the turnout tonight. I want to be clear that next month the program will again be back at the library, the meeting room on the third floor of the library. And that program will be related to Cuba. And so we welcome you all to come to that meeting in April. And I think it's time for the where in the world is the UN? I've chosen a few things to talk about. The first, because it's the month of March, and much of the world celebrates International Women's Day much more vigorously than the United States does. The UN also is very involved in trying to promote sort of an equal chance for women in the world, and one of their programs where they're working with other women's organizations is to help women young women get opportunities to be trained in science and technology, to help improve their economic possibilities and their professional professional opportunities in their life. The second thing that we hear in the news a lot is negotiations with Iran about their nuclear program. And the UN's International Agency on Atomic Energy is very much involved in those organizations. They provide the expertise to know what works and what doesn't work as far as monitoring, so we can applaud the work of the UN in helping to provide expertise in those negotiations. Then our program tonight will be on about Sierra Leone. So that is where this month the activity of the UN is. And when I look to see what has the UN been doing in Sierra Leone, I see that this is an anniversary month again. 1 year ago, it'll be a year in just a few days, the Secretary General of the UN was in Sierra Leone to help say goodbye and congratulations to the 17,000 UN peacekeeping force that had been there for the past 17 years, helped bringing peace after many years of warring in Sierra Leone. And in the latter years of their time there, they spent a lot of time helping to build infrastructure, and they've been replaced now by the United Nations Development Program. They have 23 different projects in Sierra Leone. They're spending about $16 million a year. About half that money comes from the UN itself, from the countries that make contributions to the UN. But the other the big funders are the British DFID, their program that's like our USAID, and the country of Ireland and Netherlands and I forgot the other one. Netherlands and Norway. And so they are, in addition to what they contribute to the UN, they're also contributing to these 23 projects for trying to improve life in Sierra Leone. The Sierra Leone and its sort of global health index ranks 5th out of the 170 some countries that get rated, so there's a long ways to go, but we can be proud that the UN is there. So now I wanted to leave it for our speaker to tell more about Sierra Leone, and Helen Finlay will introduce our speaker.
When you said library, do you mean the library here or the main
public library?
What?
Yeah.
The downtown public
Downtown
library.
public library.
Well, as I look around, it's sense the excitement everybody has about that we're going to hear from Mark, and I realize that many people already know him. You may already know what I'm going to say in this introduction, but for the few people who may not know that much about Mark, these are some of the bits of information about him. He's a Madison nurse with many years of experience working with national and international solidarity organizations. He began working in El Salvador in 1980, and he helped found the Madison Argentine Sister City Project in 1986. He is also a founding member of the Madison Rafa Sister City Project. We like sister cities, I think, and we do too. In addition, he teaches courses at Edgewood College and UW